Okay, it's been a little while. Sorry for the delay. It's just like the real world of off-roading. I was waiting on some parts from Australia, from down under, and everything has arrived, and I think my links that I ordered should arrive today. So I'm not really going to get into everything. I'm not sure the order I'm going to do it, what all is going on. I've got some options for different things, but this is going to be a pretty cool segment here. I'm going to add some detail. Going to make a final selection of tires, I think. A little surprise right here. Look at that. And then, you know, choices. Some little projects, and I've got a little, couple surprises, I think, in store. So I'll get to it, and I will update as I go. Alright, a little update on the build. Real quick one, I was just going to say, if you're like me and have human-sized fingers, go ahead and set up a swear jar now if you plan on doing these handles. They are the smallest little screws. I had to clean out each hole on the handle very carefully with a pin vise, and over multiple attempts try to get those to thread in. There's hardly anything to hold. So I'm going to kind of set up each one, and then I've got to figure out how to make a template to mount them. Well, that's about all I'm going to say on that one. Well, I will give one more piece of advice. I ordered 2 extra little screws, and I dropped 2, ended up finding 1 between the floor and the baseboard. These things look like a speck of dirt. So my advice would be to order, what do you need, 10 screws, and then order 10 more, because if they bounce, you're toast. And I have a magnetic work mat, but still, the Lexan flexes when you're trying to get in the holes, and they just shoot off. So, but all in all, pretty sweet. You kind of see the screws there. So, moving right along. Okay, this was a little more enjoyable than the door handles. Got this fitted in, a notch in the back, so I've got my roof light wiring coming through there. And this sits perfectly above the bolts for the mirrors and above the light buckets in the rear, so I'm not going to have to use much tape or something to hold it up in place. It basically sits pretty much locked in where it needs to be. I might have a piece of tape at the front. So moving right along. Alright, mid-build update. Interior is in, painted, loving the gray. Seats and dash really helps it pop. Got the roof rack on, which is just super sweet. It's got the mounts, looks really scaled. Got the ladder on the opposite side. Really liking it so far. It's coming together. Handles look great. Things starting to look almost real. Alright, a little update here. I thought I was done with the wiring and lighting last time, but I really like this extension I had for the front lights, so I could unplug that super easy without having to pull off this little brace, and those are really hard to get to at the ESC. So I ran another extension around the other side for the rear lights. That route's under the battery tray, and you can see the plug right there. So it's sitting right there. You can see it right there. So I think that cleans everything up, and if I need to take the body shell off, it's just a couple of quick plugs for the headlights and tail lights, and then the roof rack is right there, or the light bar lights. So a little bit easier to take apart and service now. Man, this is a slow process, but I'm enjoying it. Alright, I've got my ARB rooftop tent clone finished up. I think it looks pretty good. Just got to figure out a way to mount it. It's super lightweight, which is not reality at all for a rooftop tent, so that'll be nice. Alright, back with another update. So if you've watched any of the other builds, you'll notice I've never put a pin in the hood, and that's because I painted the outside with the flat paint, and I don't want to scratch it. So I've finally gotten to this point today. I got my magnets in. So that was another reason that I wanted to route those plugs to the rear for the lighting, because I knew I would be lowering this mount down a few millimeters to clear the width of those magnets. So anyways, boom, super easy. That's where we are. Alright, here we are with another check-in. I've got it on the scales, I've got all the gear on. I'm not going to show it, but I wanted to weigh it because I want to see where I am now. And it looks like I've shifted 10% to the rear. So we flip-flopped and we've gained weight. It was 12.6 overall, now we're 15.8 ounces. So now I'm going to look at some options here. As far as some brass knuckles, I've got some axle weights. I'm thinking about widening the track for stability since I've got the body lift. Got some links. Well, I'm going to tear everything apart. Might as well upgrade some links. And then I've got some different tires I'm thinking about, so we'll see about that, and some skids that I've got on my other Jeep and I really like them. I think they look scaled, so we'll update soon. Alright, so I got the links on, and I noticed when I weighed it, and it got a little heavier at the rear, it was sagging the suspension a little. So I moved those shocks to that forward frame rail position, and now you can see I've got a little rake to the rear, which ought to help level it out once I get that weight on there from the body shell. And it may give me a little more articulation in the rear. I think it will. For the front, I'm going to leave it right now on the stock shock tower position. Alright, quick interlude here. I'm working on the Hot Racing plus 4mm extended axles, and I got it all together, was testing it, turning the front, and I was getting all kinds of bucking on both sides. So I took one knuckle off, and I was just holding the extended pin as it rotated, still getting bucking. So I reinstalled the shorter drive shaft in the Treal knuckle, put it on there, no bucking. So I just pulled it out and was like, what is different size wise? And I got to looking in there, and there's a freaking little O-ring, a little clear O-ring that sits in the cup. So I think that is exactly the little difference that was causing the Hot Racing axle to buck, because it does not come with one. So alright, the little micro O-ring that I found did not solve it, so here's the issue. So it's starting to buck and bind in both directions, and that's that extended axle. Well, I think this is the problem. The stock drive cup is on the left, and it's deeper. It's cut deeper than the extended axle Hot Racing. The slot doesn't go as far, and it's a 90-degree slot, whereas this one is rounded, the stock one. But the cup is the same depth, I think. If not, the Hot Racing cup may be a little deeper. It's just the slot isn't there. It's not as deep. That's got to be what's causing that kicking and that binding. So I don't know. I'm going to see if I can maybe file that down a little. I guess I should have spent the extra money and gotten the full send axles. These were so tempting at, you know, 13 bucks for the whole set, front and rear, rather than 20 bucks each. So anyways, let's try to hold on to your sanity. I'm trying to hold on to mine. Alright, little Dremel cutoff wheel, and I think we are even. The right side is the one I modified. The left side is the OEM depth. So I'm going to pop this in, see if it works. Alright, now the moment of truth. Let's see if that little Dremel action solved the problem. We're good, we're good, we're good. So full stop. Smooth as butter. Look at that. So nothing's stopping it but the C-arm. Alright, so I've got to do the other side, but that fixed it. Alright, well, I pulled out some Hot Racing brass hexes I had that are already sanded down, so they fit these RC four-wheel drives. I was getting a lot of wobble on the wheels, so I just replaced this front, and it took out any of that wheel wobble. The one on the left still has the plastic spacer or hex, but I don't know, I guess it's these hexes. And that back one gets wobbly. So anyways, I think I'm gonna swap those all out. Alright, got the brass hexes in all around. Took out the wheel wobble. About as smooth as you can get. You know, what's on the front, I don't think it's wheel wobble. I think it's just a little movement. This one on the left still has a little more, but overall, much better. I think I'm going to get the body on there, get it back on the scales, see what those knuckles and weights on the front have done. But I imagine I'm going to be adding axle weights, and I've got some over the axle weights that actually ride on the axle from Treal, and then I've got these two other that can ride on the, you know, the inner axle. And I've got a brass diff I could put on the back, so it just, you know, there's no way I'm going to get it 60/40 front bias, but you know, what I don't want is it to be real tippy. And you can see the front is staying grounded, like it beforehand it wasn't, so that weight has really helped. But the back, I still think probably needs a little more to lower the center of gravity. Just doing a little flex comparison with these kinetic over-under shocks on my other Jeep, and I gotta say, this looks sweet with all the gear on there, and the flex is almost the same. I'm about maxed out with this one. Yep. So that's not bad at all. It's already holding the ground a little bit better with the weight on the back, and then we'll see the whole thing in a minute. But I think these tires, I like them a lot, but once they stick out so wide, they look a little square with the, you know, the AT tread pattern. It's not near as aggressive and chunky on the edges, you know, like these guys. So I think I'm going to be swapping these out, although these are, I really love these tires, but for a different build. Okay, it's back on the scales. So we're a little closer to 50/50, and we are 17.1 ounces overall. And with that rear shock adjustment, that got us sitting exactly level. Look at that, that looks good. So I'll probably end up still adding weight to the rear just to stabilize it. So as I was adding some of this counterweight to the rear, I was fitting in these hot racing axle weights, and on the passenger side I was getting just like a full stop bind when I tightened it, the nut down. So I actually shaved off some of the hex, the backside. I sanded that down. It was still touching, basically when you tighten it down, it was touching the weight that it was sitting against. So it was compressing everything. So I finally went back to the packet that they sent, and there's all these screws, these little silver screws that are flatheads. And I thought, you know, this is just junk they threw in there for some reason. But anyways, I ended up installing those as the bearing retainer screws on the opposite side that was binding, and this is fully tightened, no more binding. So there's a little bit of play on that weight. There's probably a millimeter so on the shaft, so it can slide back and forth. So you can see this side, I have not swapped those out yet. They still have those kind of pan head retainer screws on there. So I'm going to go ahead and swap those out. So that basically just tucks all those screw heads back more flush to the axle housing, so there won't be any rub when everything, you know, lines up on that axle shaft. Well, all that rear counterweight on the axle put us right back to being very rear heavy. So we almost equaled it out to 50/50, and then we came back to a 56/44 rear bias. And this is with the battery in, so that's a little bit of a difference, but I want to go ahead and get the stock battery in there just to see, because I know that adds a little weight. So that's something I really wasn't thinking about. But so we're 19.7 ounces overall right now, and the only thing I haven't done is the final tire tweak. Well, I got the tires on, loving them. I think they look a good bit more aggressive. While I was doing that, I remembered one thing, one crucial thing on order. So that's going to delay the reveal. So anyways, you're going to be able to chew on this. I'm going to go ahead and post it, and I'll update with the kind of reveal and overall thoughts on the build and a little more detail on some of the scale components that you're not seeing on the roof and the rest of the rack. So look for an update shortly. Thanks for watching.